Hi guys, welcome. I'm Carly from Carly's Creative Clay. As you can see, I'm in my nightgown at the moment because it's cold. So you're going to have big sleeves and polka dots to deal with. Right, I hope you're all having a good week. I thought I'd start out by showing something that I've just put in my Etsy shop. Now, hi Fairy Hedgehog. Charlie Star, who often frequents this stream and chats with us, she set me a challenge to actually make a human. Now, anyone who knows me knows I've avoided humans because I'm not brilliant at them. I only made, this one is my fourth one, and you spot the slightest things that are out with humans. So my previous ones I've not been as happy with as I have all the other things I've made, but this one actually turned out really well and I was able to learn a lot from her. So she's in my shop for £98. First off, I will say I broke my no painting rule. If you look, I've given her eyeshadow, eyeliner and lipstick. That's the only bits that are painted on this. It all started out with this stone. I got it from a charity shop. It's a beautiful shape. It looks like it's worth a lot of money. It wasn't cheap for me either. But when I saw it, I thought it'd make a really good scrying table for a witch. So that's what I've done. We've got, if I hold the stone in place, quite a gothy looking witch woman. And I sculpted all her body before I put clothes on her. So she taught me a huge amount. Can you see there's like a metal hair clasp? Let's see if I can get the light on it. It's got red stones, that little round hair clasp there. See it better there. And she's got a crystal in her staff and some really good wood texturing going on through that staff. I was pretty pleased with it. And the table, I managed to mount 3 cat's eye crystals in the middle there, and on the legs I made a bit of a fancy filigree design. Then we're on to the dragon. One of my friends called Philip said that he really likes black dragons, and it inspired me to do almost black. Can you see the edge of the scales are fading into silver, but a very dark silver? And I wanted to brighten the whole thing up with these spirals, so that's what it's got on its abdomen, claws, wings and its horns. So let's get the face. There we go. We have nice big horns up at the top there, and a few across its face. Now that hand stroking its nose, that was some of the hardest bit work I did. It's really, really difficult to get that. Hands are not easy. But I got her, and just for completion, this is what the underside looks like. So it's a nice rainbow swirly pattern. So yeah, I'm really pleased with how she turned out. And if anyone else has a challenge they want to set me to do, I'm happy to give it a go. And it's left me wanting to try again and build on my learning experience from her. So I'm going to start another model of a woman, but before I do, I just want to show you how the ducks from last week turned out. They are baked and varnished, which always brings the colour out, I think.
That's amazing. It's so cool to get much more up close for you.
Thank you, Arty Hearty Life. So these have gone in the shop for 20 quid because there's a lot more work on that than my other heart ones.
Love those ducks.
Thank you. I pretty much love those ducks, actually. It's one of the ones that I was very sorely tempted to keep. I may end up making myself a personal duck model. We'll see. Right. So, for human sculpting, the first thing you're going to need is an armature. So a metal skeleton. Now, this is one I've already made, but I'm going to not use this. I'm going to show you how to make this. Yeah. It's... Thank you, Arty Hearty Life. It's really important that you take the time and actually make an armature for your person, because there's a lot of very, very thin details, like the arms and the neck. They're easy break points. And the other thing you'll find, you'll have to do some very thick legs if you want your model to stand upright and you haven't got the wiring supporting it. So it's really worth taking the time to do this step. Now, florist wire. What I've used is, I can't remember if it's 18 or 20 gauge. 18 is thicker than 20, so the larger the number, the thicker the wire. I find once you start going thicker than 18, it gets very hard to cut, it gets very hard to shape, and you're far more likely to end up gouging your hand and causing yourself big cuts.
The smaller the number, the thicker the wire. You said the larger the number, the thicker the wire.
Sorry, you're right. The smaller the number, the thicker the wire. So 18 is bigger, is a thicker wire than 20. That one. My mind is not very good at numbers, but yes, that is definitely the case. So I've already got a nice scar across my hand as a testimony to don't use thicker wire than you actually can comfortably cut with your tools. Learn from me. Now, florist wire or craft wire, they're pretty much the same thing. You can either get it bare like this or covered in paper like that. The ones covered in paper, the clay grips to it better, but if you want to be able to slide your clay around like I tend to need to do for my limbs, I find it better to have non-covered wire. Now, if you get the sticks, they're never really longer than what this is. So about the size, a little bit smaller. This is a standard chopping board. So what we're talking, that's 19 centimeters to there, because I bought these ages ago. 19, 16, so that's about 37 ish. So 35. So yeah, it's not going to be long enough to do all what we need for a model this size. You would need to make one smaller. So the way you get around that is you get the reels. It's more annoying because they want to keep that curved shape, but you can convince it to lay right. So the other thing I'm going to use at this stage, which is really useful, is a wooden artist's mannequin. I got this for, I think it was £4 from the works, this little one. And as you can see, you can literally measure up your armature against the mannequin. So it just makes the proportions easier to get right. And if you get them wrong, people will notice. On animals, they don't notice so much. You can freehand a lot more with this. But you get the maths wrong on a human, and our brains are trained to spot it. So I'm taking a fair old length of wire, because I know this is going to be too much, but I've got a pot full of shorter little extra bits of wire that I put the offcuts in, that I use for things like pinning heads onto bodies and little jobs where you just need something to bridge the gap. So don't throw away your endy bits of wire, they tend to be useful at later dates. Right, now you need a fairly decent chunky set of pliers for this, because we're going to be twisting wire. And the other tool I've found you need, find something that is roughly the same size as the head around, so when you can you see it just lines up properly with the head size. It took me a bit of hunting around, but it's amazing how many different cylinders there are around your home of different sizes. Once you've found one that matches up to the size you want, it's easy because you know the tool then in the future. So we need to first off find halfway on this wire, roughly. So how I do this is, because it's curved, can you see I'm just pushing that middle bit in and it's making it bow. Line up the two tips and then just slightly bring it towards itself. I don't want to bend it entirely in half, I just need to find the middle, so it's about there. And I'm going to put my cylinder, the head shape, roughly in the middle and just curve that wire around. Keep track of your ends, you don't want to wind up poking yourself in the eye. But I'm just folding it firmly over on itself, like that. See? Then I'm going to put a first twist in those two wires, like that. Now I can already see that's slightly too big, so what we're going to do is we're going to bring it up to being tight by twisting it. And what you'll find is your hands don't hold it well enough, so you need to get those pliers in right at the base of that joint and then use your rod to help twist. Make sure you're twisting in the right direction, because I have before unrolled it.
I heard it says hi-j. I don't know what that means.
Hi. Be careful, you don't want to snap your wire. There we go, that's roughly the right sort of size. Now check it out against the head, slightly too wide, so I want to bring it just in a bit. Like that, and probably do one more twist on it. So I'm going to put the rod back in, hold it at the base and twist up. But you want to get this head size right from the start. So firm pressure, just do a twist. There we go. That's in. That's better. You see it's on there nice and tight now, so you can just slide it off, and that should be the right size for that. Yeah, perfect. Now you only want about 2 twists, maybe 3 in that neck before we go to the next bit, which is we're going to put 1 wire in for both arm lengths. So you need enough wire.
I didn't realise that was Jake.
Oh, hi Jake, lovely to see you. Right, how are you going to measure your wire out? Tip of the hand, go up to the shoulder, bend it around the back of the shoulder. Oops, that's the shoulder there. Back down the side like that. There's the tip, and then we're going to add some extra. And what that extra will be is for twisting it into place. So about there. And I'll put that back in my safe pot. Whoop. These baggy sleeves are so easy to catch things. Right. Now this is probably the most trickiest part of the whole armature. Kind of roughly get that in the middle, and you're going to carry on that twist so that it traps that wire. So start out as tight up as you can. And what you will find, if you're anything like me, I haven't got it so that it's a smoothly done thing yet. So that wire is going to fall out. You're going to want to cuss at it. Persevere. See? So I'm going to tighten that up a little bit. Make sure I leave enough room for the wire to be put back in, so then I can tighten around it. But yeah, it is annoying getting the arms in. And I'm sure when I'm at sort of 5 or 10 makes of these, it won't be this fiddly. But I thought it was important to show you that you can end up with a great armature even when you're struggling on this stage. There we go, in that way, like that. Now let's hold you like that as much as you can. You can even measure roughly halfway along and put a bend in it to help it not want to fall out of place whilst you twist this. That might work. There we go, holding on the joint, don't snap, because I've had that happen as well, the wire snap. That is in pretty tight, which is good enough, because what you're going to do from that extra bit of wire, you're going to take this arm and fold it over like that. Then you're going to take that arm and fold it over like that, and use your pliers to make sure that they're level with each other just by squidging them down together. There we go. Now I knew once I started doing this I was going to warm up. That's why I didn't put on a full jumper. Just an easy thing to take off. Right, so we've got heads, we've got shoulders to put in now. So make sure we've got our measurements right. Hold it against your model. Yep, head's in the right place. That's all okay. So we're going to start twisting loosely till we get down to that pelvis. Like that. Loose twist, and we'll straighten that spine up at a later point. So don't worry so much about that. So where are we now? There we go, straighten it up a bit. Now do remember your model is not going to be as thin as this stick, so if your spine's not straight, that's not the actual spine you're gonna see through your model, so it should be fine. But that's roughly about right. So we're now at hip height. So from there we're gonna go out to the side and out to the side at the same height. Now I'm getting a ruler because you want to measure how much out you want your hips from that central line. So from there to about there. So you don't want to go all the way to that outside line. You want the metal to sit in the middle of the leg. So on this one, that central line to the middle of the leg is about just over 1/2 centimetre. So that's how wide we want our hips on this. So middle to 1/2 centimetre. Mark it with your finger or something like that, and that's where we're going to put the bend. Like that. So that goes out, that goes down. We got a hip bend. So doesn't matter that these arms are wobbly, we will be sorting that out at a later point. I'm just going to make sure that that's right. Yep. Now same on the other side. Measure it up, mark it with my finger, get my pliers in and do the bend. Now I already hear you saying they're not level with each other. You can make them level just by doing a bit of finagling and reposition where you got that bend in, because it will now be too wide. But if you wanted to, you could have just done it with uneven hips, because the legs will cover it all up. The actual hips on the finished thing will not be where these wires actually are. But there we go, roughly in place. There. Right. Now, on some of my earlier models, I've not put feet in. I've just stopped at the ankle. This is a really bad idea. What you'll find when your clay bakes, it softens before it goes hard, and the weight of it will just make the whole thing topple and snap at the ankles. You can fix it, but it's not the same as if you don't snap it in the first place. That's far easier. So what I've ended up doing is putting in feet. So about there, that looks about right. Put a bend in like that. And then what I'm going to do is just use my finger, or you can use something like the tool for the head, just to put a bit of a curve in. You're then going to bring that back round on itself, making a very much smaller loop, little loop like that. Then twist that off. So what you're going to do is keep that out of the way like that. Give it a twist. There we go. Then when you bend that up, that makes a foot. See? Now the first foot is easy. Making sure the second foot is the same length, that's more tricky. So you can either measure it or eyeball it if you feel confident. There we go, I'd say about there. You can, if you cut that bit of wire off, and you want to cut that really close to where you've twisted, because you don't want it to stick through the ankle at a later point. So I really get it right flush with that curve. like that. And use you just to bring it up. There you go. So I can now embed that in the foot and it won't stick out. Cutting the wire can mean that I know it's off camera, but what I'm doing is putting it on the edge and making sure that it can stand up, which it can't. It's a few millimeters too short, that leg. So it's an easy way of telling before you commit to actually making the foot. So here, let's show you on a reel of tissue. All I'm doing is literally that. Sorry, standing it up. Does it stand level before you commit to making the next foot? And I'd say that looks pretty good to me. So then make that twist. Whoop. I should probably just use my pliers. It doesn't matter if the feet are the same size. They're only to hold them onto, hold your feet onto the ankle. You're going to be actually dealing with the foot size when you come to add clay to it. Like that. There we go. That'll do. That's the start of it. You can technically stop there with your armature, but there is an added bit that I tend to do. Let's find. I need to get my smaller ones to get in there. I do love these little ones because you really can just get into the smallest little gaps and snip with them. There we go. They're jewellery making pliers, these ones. So this is going off as spare. Right, the next stage that we do, that I like to do, is put in a bit of padding round where the rib cage will be, and just bulk out the centre of that head. And what that does, it just gives the clay something more firm to anchor onto. And I'll show you how I do that. Dry mouth. Let's get my wire out the way, because it's better to put it somewhere safe, because you'll end up losing track of it and you'll find it again when you stab it in your arm. If you're tidy with your materials as much as you can be, you tend to end up with less accidents. I know that sounds preachy, but it is just true. Right, I got some tiny little bits of tin foil. Now, that'll probably be enough for the rib cage. In line with my safety instructions, what I do before I use foil is I fold those sharp edges over, in on themselves, like that, on all four sides, and then I start to work with them, because there's nothing worse. Actually, there is one thing worse than a tin foil cut, and that's possibly a cardboard box cut. I don't know if any of you have ever had a paper cut from a cardboard box, but oh my, it hurts so much. I used to do stationery for a benefits office, and I was opening boxes and boxes and boxes of paper, because it's all forms, right? And before I worked out what I was doing, the cuts I got up my hands and arms first few months, they were just awful. Made washing up after dinner very tricky. Can you see I'm just wrapping it round where that rib cage would be, trying to get it on a bit tight, and I'm going to do that for about half of that strip, because the other half I'm going to use to just bring it up over the shoulders to hold it a bit more in place. But you will find if you want to make it a bit easier on yourself, you can just wrap it around like this and just use the masking tape alone to hold it in place. So what I tend to do is just do a little, like a halter neck on it, like that. And that helps get those arms in place. Just pinchy, 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 back down, because you want a neck still. Now, if you, like this one, have found that it's taken up all the neck, you can get your ball tools or something that's got a bit of a stick, just flatten it all down. If you can't be bothered to do this, that's why I suggest just wrap it round the abdomen and do this with masking tape alone. But I like to get it right. So yeah, just having a fiddle, just pushing it down off the shoulders so that it holds, and I'm getting the right shape ribs. And you may think that's pretty small for ribs, but we are adding a layer of masking tape, and we are gonna be this is the core, it's not the whole thing, but you don't want it moving around too much to get that foil on properly. Right, masking tape. The reason why I'm doing this foil core is because you don't want too much thick clay, so this helps thin down the clay amount around that abdomen a little, and it helps hold those shoulders in place. So I'm just wrapping some tape around it like that, and what I'm going to do is cut down like that, just under the armpits, and you'll then find that you can shape that masking tape a bit better. Now, it doesn't matter if there's little sticky outy bits or crinkles in the masking tape.
American Sugar asks, why don't you want thick clay?
Right, thick clay, when you're baking, the temperature has to get all the way through the clay. If the clay does not reach the temperature on the packet's instructions, it will not go hard on that point. So you end up with an outer shell that's hard and baked, and the inside is soft clay. And soft clay has a lot more movement in it than tinfoil does. So it's far better to have tinfoil as the core than it is to have raw clay. Now, I'm starting to just try and shape some of this shoulder, and I like this tool for that, because you can really get under that armpit. If I was doing a guy, you'd want to go out to the sides and down. They have far more of a squared shoulder, whereas women tend to have this sort of very steep downward slant to their shoulder blades. Yeah, that looks kind of alright. Lost a bit of neck there. Top of the head snapped that wire there, but I can actually, that's fine. Actually, it's probably good because I can show you, we can, if that happens to you, it doesn't make much of a difference. So, roughly got shoulders in the right place. Let's get this so that it's not bent over. And I've found over time it's worth spending time fighting to get your armature in the right position all the time than it is to let it go and try and sort it out once you put clay on it, because you can end up getting it so bent out of shape that it's harder to get it back. So we're now going to fill this head space. So I'm going to make a little bit of a ball from one end, like that. I know I haven't wrapped the sides in, but this one doesn't matter much. Tucking that into that gap, and I'm going to push it flat like that, and then wrap the foil around the head and smush it flat. So you're looking for a flat disc, you're not looking for any head shape at all. There we go. And that's helped get a bit more neck back in. Make sure you've not got any sticky up bits, especially on the top, because you'll find that will be where the clay's at its thinnest. So you want to get the shape right. There we go, like that. Now, tin foil out the way, tiny bit of tape over the head just to hold it in place, because the clay grips better to masking tape than it does to tin foil, and uneven pointy bits in masking tape don't stick through clay, whereas the pointy bits in tin foil seem to always want to poke through. So it's always worth doing that bit of tape at the end. And again, try not to lose your neck if you can. There we go. Don't need all that. Whoops, do need a bit more there. Like this. Right. Okay. So, hopefully, I didn't make that look really smooth and easy, because your first few aren't. This is the 6th armature I've ever made. So each one will get easier and smoother, but I didn't want to wait till I got that way with making my humans, because that's not what you will experience. So there we go. We're at that stage. Now, again, make sure everything's right. For some reason, one of my legs seems slightly too long. I'm going to have to fix that. I think I'm going to just bend it up like that. Give this one a bit more of a knee curvature. So fiddle around with your armature. The other thing you need to do is, at this stage, it's better to decide on your positioning. So I'm going to do another dragon lady, and since I've done a white skinned woman, I'm going to do a black woman. I know I'm on sketchy terms here because YouTube goes all across the planet. Certain racial terms like black and coloured are more offensive in different countries than they are in other countries. So I'm not, if I use a term that ain't right for you, I'm really, really sorry. I'm trying. I don't want to offend anyone. But I do think it's important to me as an artist to represent as many races as I can in my artwork. And I found back when I was a teenager and I was a goth, which I was, I had the basques, the pewter bats, the whole thing, long black hair. It was brilliant fun, but most of the goth industry seems to be designed around white people. And that's not all the goths that are out there. Some of the most stunning goths I knew had very, very dark black skin. It was a pair of sisters, and they loved wearing dark purples and reds and these beautiful silver eyeshadows, and I was always very envious. They always looked far better than I did. But all the models that you see, they tend to be white guys. So I'm going to do a black lady with a dragon and the whole goth outfit. So, stage 1, I've got some different skin tones I've mixed up. I think that's the one I'm looking at going for. That's the normal brown that you get from Fimo. I think there's a few different kinds in the small blocks, but since I've never used the small blocks, I've only ever used the big blocks. They only do one shade of brown in the big, and that's it. So if you wanted to go on a paler shade, this one's got a little bit more white in it, but it's also got some yellow and some pink, because when you add just white to brown, it ends up with this really beigey washed out colour to it. I think you need to mix a bit of pinks and some yellows in to actually bring it back to looking reasonable. In this one I added a bit of black too, and a bit of very, very pale pink, and that's where I ended up, and I think that's where I'm going to go. So when you got your armature in a position that you want, roughly, you can move it around at the end. I'm probably going to have the arms up doing something, so let's bring them up. Best place to start, I find, is on the abdomen. So get yourself some conditioned clay, flatten it out a bit. You were conditioned. I got some very willful clay going on. You need it to be soft at this stage. Right, here we go. You're looking to make a bit of a sheet that's not massively thick, but you don't want to go too thin either, because very thin clay is easy to tear, but very thick clay, you can't really, you're lessening the amount you're allowed to build on it, and it can end up looking like a very chunky model, apart from the fact it all adds baking time. So I go about, what do you say, 3mm, maybe 4, that sort of thickness, and I'm just going in under the armpits. Now what I find is it's better to put the joint either on the back or the front, and I actually find with women, because you're going to be adding a load of chest in a minute, it's better to put that joint on the front. Make sure you're not trapping any air. You want to get it right down in tight. Don't worry if it's too thin, like the model itself looks too skinny, because you can add clay to it afterwards, but trapped air will cause a weak point. So basic bit of wrapping around there, and then we're gonna almost put a cloak over the shoulder. You can, if you want to make it easy on yourself, tear a little slit in the middle there like that, and put one of the arms in that slit like that. Bring that round, then you can come round the back. I find this is actually thin enough to do that, and I know that looks scrappy, but we're about to do a whole lot of pinching and making it all look smooth, because you want to make sure you've got more clay towards the front than you have towards the back, because where the legs are positioned, you don't want to make a hunchback. If you find you've got sort of weird shaping going on, you can always use your craft knife and just carve some off, but Just going in like that, and you'll find you've already got enough clay for a neck. You're just going to pinch that in. So I don't understand how people make models that are smaller than this, because I can barely get into the space with what I've got. Right, almost there, because the neck's still a little bit chunky, and it doesn't matter that we're going up the head with that excess clay. That's absolutely fine, because we're going to be adding to it at a lot later stage. We're going to also, with this project, have a lot of in-between bakes, and that's the secret to actually achieving this without driving yourself unbelievably crazy, smudging your work and then re-smudging your work. It gets very annoying. So I think that abdomen looks a little thin. What do you reckon? I think I need to just widen that out a bit more. So I'm just going to take a bit more clay, and we'll wrap him from the front, remember, not around the back, because you don't want a hunchback. I'm just going to feather in those joins like that and push it all down in place. It's best to get the right amount of clay in place for your stomach before you try and mess around with putting any detail in, like the scapula on the back or any breasts on your female, because once they're on, it's harder to add to the abdomen. I find I have done it, but it was a real faff. I'm just smoothing in under the armpits there and getting rid of that back join line like that. Now that looks more like it to me waist wise. So now I've got the clay I want, I can make sure I've got the neck and the collarbone right. So what I've found, and I discovered this on my last time around, if you've got some rubber tip tools, you can roll the clay and move it into a place that you want and add some really good detail. So what I'm going to just start to do is, on the front, check which way your feet are facing first. I'm just adding in some little collarbones already, and I'll hold the head in order to be able to look down on them properly. And what the collarbones look like, they're those two little diagonal lines above your chest, just literally directly under your neck, and they tend to be symmetrical and they diagonal down from your shoulder like that. Now I know the ones I'm putting in here look pretty dang chunky, and the chunkier you put them in, the more starved the person looks. So what you do, once you've got them in the right place for you and the right angle, because it's easier to see them when they're chunky than it is to try and work it out when they're fine. We're gonna just slightly tap them down so that they're not so prominent. So it's like very gentle petting. And I'm just getting that neck shape back in the way I want, and I'm gonna give her that little dip that's in your throat there, that little dip there, and those two tendons that go up and support your neck. So what you do, little rubber tool, really light touches. I'm just encouraging some of the clay into a line over that side, and then encouraging the clay in a line on the opposite side. And I've seen people use ball tools. You can use your finger in theory, but I don't think you'll get your finger in that smaller space unless you're very lucky and very persistent. Just have a little fiddle around. We're just trying to get those lines in, looking right. That needs to come round a bit more. I'll give you a look in a second. Oop. There you go. The good thing about clay, if you get it wrong, you can just rub it out. But can you see that tendon? It goes from behind the ear down. That's the line. So that's where you're picturing it going up. And it's not as prominent as this. We're going to make it fade a lot. But it does come into quite a narrow point there. So you've got to fan it out up at the top, but bring it down into a point, which isn't the easiest thing, I'm honest, but it's entirely doable just by fiddling around a bit like this. I reckon I'm almost there with it. Let's just smooth out that chest because it looks a bit crazy. There we go. Right. Can you see what I mean? We've got a collar in, and now we've got those little lines to the side of the neck. I might have faded that one down just slightly too much. Just build it up just a little bit more. I'm barely touching it. There we go. Right. So we've got that neck in how we want, and the shoulders in. So if you've got the shape that you want to the stomach, now don't forget we're going to put the hips in after, and they're going in about there. So we might want to bring that waist in just a little bit more here. Or if you wanted to do a bigger bellied girl, you'd put that, imagine a rib cage and put that there. I'm just going to tap it in. The alternative, you can also tap in a 6-pack using this just to roll the clay so that you get those defined muscles. But if you're going to put a 6-pack on the front, you've got to make sure you define down the sides and around the back. So it's not something I would suggest for someone starting out with modelling. It's easier to do a skinny person with undefined muscles. Now, on the back, with animals that are on all four, you get to see this arched spine sticking up through the skin because of the position and the gravity. Where we stand upright, the skin sags around the spine, so what you get is a very slight indent rather than a stick out spine. So what you need to do, again very lightly, just start to draw in a spine. Now you need to be straight on this, because you will find that if it's off to one side or it's not straight, people will notice because it looks like you've got spinal problems. We tend to notice stuff a little more if there's a health problem associated with that asymmetry. I'm just rounding off the side a little bit more so that it's a deep groove, but a very sort of smooth round as it goes into the back, like that. Little gentle movements. You really don't want a lot. So, can you see? And again, the more you put in a then the more it's gonna look actually like she's a bit pudgier. So that's something to bear in mind. Right, without smudging what you've done on the front there and what you've done on the back. So what I suggest is you hold it at the waist. We're going to put in some scapulars. Those are those little semicircle bones that are around the shoulders, like that. Just gently tapping it in. Now don't forget, we're going to put in arms a bit later on. Just going to tap in a scapula, and again, make sure they look even and symmetrical. On humans, we like to see symmetry. And turning it upside down and holding it sideways and things like that help you see whether they're actually in the same place and looking the same as each other. Don't matter about fingerprints at the moment. I'll show you how to smooth them out in a bit. Just trying to get that scapula in by rolling the clay to build up that area and roll it away from just underneath where you put that scapula. So that one's in the right place, that one's slightly too high, so let's just roll it down a bit more like that and roll up from there. So you can change it, it does work fine like that. Tap you back down. You will find you lose obscene amount of time just fiddling. I mean, the woman that I did there.
Vera Hedgehog asks, how do you know where to put the bottom of the scapula?
Right. Let's show you on this. Right. Roughly in the right place on her. I got an old Cindy doll from the charity shop. Barbie doll, I don't know. One of them. Doll. Right. If you picture, that's the rib cage on her. Just up a bit. So it's just sort of there, but on your back. It's almost armpit level. That's a good way of describing it. Armpit level. There are these two bumps like that. Now, nature has done a wonderful design there. What happens is the tendons that control your arms, they splay out across your back, they come up, they do a twist on themselves, go through the hole in that bone and then into your arm and up around your neck. It's a terrible design. That's why people get a lot of tension under those bony plates. You can feel them and see them if you put your arm behind your back and lift your shoulder up a bit. If you get someone to do that, that position makes them stick out a bit. And if you've got pain under there, get someone to do that and then just run your thumb very gently under the edge of that scapula and it'll start bringing out some of the knots. I know this because I trained as a masseuse back when I was in my teens. So you're looking at the armpit and it's almost a little W that you're looking at creating, and I'm just using my fingers to help tap them in place because I want hers to be quite defined. And the reason why, if she's a dragon rider, that's quite an athletic job. So it isn't unexpected that she's going to have quite defined back muscles, especially these ones that are used for holding on which certainly is something you're going to need to do on the back of a dragon. There we go. This is looking far more like correct for me. Let's put that spine back in. There we go. Can you see? Looks like tiny little pecks on the back. That's what you're looking for. That's a very good back, I think. Lots of subtle hints on it. And we've done the neck. If your neck's how you like, then great. The only thing else that I would say you need to do is work out where you want your belly button. Now,
Fairy Hedgehog says, I think there's a good back too.
thank you, Fairy Hedgehog. I would say if we're going to do boobs there, we're going to have belly button there. So I'm just giving a bit of a mark because the next stage is to put some boobs on her. It's easier to get the back and the front all done at once on the chest and then do a bake. So I'm getting some brown. You're deciding on your boob size. Now, because I'm going to be dressing her, I don't need to do nipples, which is useful because they're fiddly. Too big. I think we're going to need a little smaller chest than that. That looks more like it. So, although weirdly enough, most women do not have the same size boobs on each side. They are very slightly out. Some women's are quite significantly out, but you don't notice so much. That's entirely normal and healthy. So it doesn't matter so much if you get your boob balls the wrong size. And we're just roughly going for round because we're going to do a lot of smudging. Now again, we're holding on the waist. We're not going to mess up that back. If you're not sure, do this and then do the back. Sorry, I'm just starting to push that in place and push the other one in place. Now, you want them just under your scapula, like that. Then I'm going to get my tool and I'm just going to start to roll that clay. Let's see if I've got a better tool for this. I haven't found the perfect one just for smoothing from an upright into a horizontal. But you'll get there, fiddle around with some different tools, and you're just trying to join the top edge. You want to stop at armpit height. It's just that top line that you're smoothing out. Let's see if I've got a ball tool. That'll probably be better. Little ball tool. Bit more firmness than those rubber tools have got. I'm just smoothing in that join, and I'm paying attention to that back finger, that I'm not wrecking up my work, because it's really annoying when you focus so much on the front that you don't see that you're messing up the back. So let's get the clay down again, like that, and again under the armpit, smooth out these little cracks. Once you've got this join line out, then we can start to position the clay so that it's not so rounded at the top, because it looks a bit fake chested at the moment. What I want to do is I'm pushing down from the top and up from underneath to try and get a decent slope from that top line. There we go, that's better. Right, let's get that bit joined in, a bit smoother now. Like that. There. Because you can tell this isn't one I'm so confident with, because I'm not doing daily news and any of that sort of stuff, because I really got to focus, because this is very much out of my comfort zone. But I do think it helps that I trained as a masseuse. I was so fascinated when I was younger that of all the old wives' tales you get told as a kid, the one about being able to rub someone better, that's a thing. That actually you can do that. And it is amazing. It's an amazing skill to know. I enjoy giving massages even more than I enjoy receiving them. And I really enjoy receiving them. Put it that way. It's nice, especially when you know what you're doing, that you're not hurting anyone, that you know the dangers and the risks involved. Because there are risks. It freaks me out. I see people who do I'm just going to have a go at this. How hard can it be? And they're pressing on their partner's spine. That line, that dip down line, never go over it. If your masseuse will do a very gentle glide over it and work either side. Directly either side of it, you've got bits that need actually some work. There's some muscles that help keep your spine up that can get pretty stiff. But actually, on the spine itself, no, never. If the person has ever had deep vein thrombosis, don't ever give them a massage. Not once, not anywhere, even if it's the other side of their body. Terrible idea. You can dislodge a thrombose and you've basically signed, if it doesn't get spotted in time, it can kill them. So it's not so safe that you shouldn't have some idea of what you're doing before you do it. So I reckon I'm going to need a little bit more fiddling around before I got this exactly how I want. But once I do, I'll then give her a bake and we'll get on to either legs or arms next week. Okay? So this is where we're at so far. And I hope you all have a really great week and stay tuned, like and subscribe to me, because next week I'm going to carry on with her. Okay? Thanks all for joining in and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye.